Buongiorno. I thank you for joining me today. And here's your new album. And
Mhm.
it is this one is in pink. Thank you for sending it to me.
Yes.
And here you are with you're very upset over here. And
Yes.
but people should know it's a beautiful looking record. You're in pink there, and that's a cool pressing. How important was it for you to get the new album on vinyl? Were you very excited about it? Are you a vinyl person,
Yeah.
or what do you think? What's
Yeah.
your connection with records?
When I moved here, I gently asked my parents if it was okay for me to grab some of them. Just be like, can I get them now? And they were like, oh, maybe you should just wait, when we're not around anymore, you get them all. And I was like, no, I'm gonna get a bunch of them. So I get a couple of them, my favorite ones. And my dad, always put on. There's some Italian singer-songwriters that I'm really attached to it, that they have on vinyl, but also just, classic folk and some Americana, some, stuff like that. And some, staple pieces that really like, for example, my dad has a very mm, rare pressing of All Things Must Pass by George Harrison,
Okay,
and you can't find it anywhere. So I don't even play it because I'm afraid
right.
of ruining it. I put it into a frame and it's hanging in a room. Like we're talking about stuff like that. I do have a collection of the things that I've listened to, but some of them I don't even touch them. They're just, you know,
Yeah.
uh, art pieces.
Your new album is called Imported, of course, which I
Yeah.
imagine is a bit of a play on your immigration from Italy. And, just tell us about growing up in Italy and how you got to Nashville and then you ended up in Philadelphia. And of course, love has a role to play in it. But could you tell our audience your story about how you got from there to here?
So my growing up in Italy, it was I had a pretty happy childhood. I was pretty, everything went pretty smooth. Well, I was born in Turin, which is up north Italy, and then my dad had to move for work reasons, a little down, and let's say the last region of north before entering the center Italy. So it's on Adriatic Sea. I got lucky because living next to the water for me is very good. Um, in the summer though, in the winter is tragic because it's so cold and humid.
Yeah.
But um, I decided that I wanted to go, study cello. I went to conservatory. I asked my parents to do that. They were very supportive, which was I will be forever grateful for them to let me do that. Because it wasn't easy, obviously, because it comes with a lot of responsibility from my side and also for their side, because obviously um, there's a lot to do and there's a lot of investment and there's a lot of, it becomes from a smooth childhood, it becomes like, oh, now you're a teenager and you're learning how to do this and you want to be a musician. This is going to be a lot. And it was actually a lot. I have to
Right.
go, you know, um, there was a lot of things that other teenagers were doing that I wasn't doing because I had to be in my house studying a lot in order for me to, keep going and have my string courses and do orchestra auditions and all of those things at the same time. You have the regular high school and then whatever college or whatever you have to do. Um, then I want to say when I was about like 20 something, I kind of wanted to explore a little bit more of other area of music that was just classical. And that was kind of the beginning for me of expanding a little bit my world. I always speak a little bit of English. My English isn't perfect, but it's a little over the average of Italian
Neither is
English.
mine. My English isn't perfect either.
As Ron always said the same thing. It's like, you speak English better than I. And I was like, no, no, but
Right.
okay. But yeah, that was actually very good. Also, another thing that my parents always want me to do it was, learning languages because as a musician, they thought that it would be useful and helpful. It turns out to be because when I started to actually want to, expand a little bit, pick up other instruments. It was initially guitar. Then I figured that as a cellist, playing bass would be so much easier for me. So I started to play a little bass, and then in conservatory, and there is a complementary piano to study. So, keyboard and all of that. So very quickly realized that for me, the idea to actually be a singer-songwriter or a producer would not be bad. And I could also incorporate all of the things that I've learned, for,
Hmm.
music theory, harmony, whatever, compositions, none of it. So I think it was about like 2021 when I started to realize that and like expand a little bit my world and then actually lead me to eventually meet Ron, which was the reason primary why I moved to the States. I would have never moved here if I hadn't met him. And so yeah, love was the pretty much the only reason why I decided to do something like this, but
Hmm.
it turned out to be a good things under so many aspects because here I think America is one of the last country where if you actually want to try to be a singer-songwriter or do something in the music industry, if there is still a music industry,
Right, right, right.
question mark, you can still try. You can still do it. When in Europe, it's a little bit more complicated, I think, especially when it comes to pop, pop in the popular sense, not pop like top 50, but
Right.
like, not classical music. If you
Rock and roll,
want
yeah,
to,
rock and indie rock, whatever.
yes,
Yeah.
whatever is, something else that is not classic or jazz, you can still try. You can still make your own record and go tour, or you can still try and shop for a label, and eventually you can still do something. Not that it will change your life as a musician, probably, to be very brutally honest, but you can still have that dream and you can still try. And so I figured when I moved here, Ron was very animated for me to actually pursuing that because I had to deal with a lot of, sexist and, feeling like under because I was a woman and I was one of the only women in my scene where I was in Italy that was capable
Mm.
to make songs from scratch all without having to ask anybody. And
Right.
you really don't expect, people really don't expect that. People expect girls to hang out in the studio because they're probably hanging out with somebody from, that works there. When there
Right.
was me like, yeah, I'll fix whatever you're doing. I'll make it better. And they were like, no, oh my God, what's happening? So I would never be able to actually do it because
Right.
they really didn't want it. It's that close-minded. When I arrived here, Ron was like, okay, now you should try and pursue that because I think you can really do it. And yeah, I got to Nashville, then we decided that we didn't want it to be in Nashville for some reason anymore. I guess the beginning of the pandemic actually pushed us to wanted to be a little bit more close to Ron's family because we felt very isolated, rightfully so. Everybody
Mm.
did, but
Right.
so we moved back to Philly. For him, as moving back, for me, it was my new experience, which it was living in the city, which we can talk about for 45 hours, but because it was a lot.
A big
And
change, right?
then, yes. And then now we're doing a little bit there, a little bit here, because we kind of need to balance it out a little bit. Because I quickly realized that I don't know if I'm that city head. I don't know if I can do it
Mm-hmm.
that intensely. Also because we living in a area where there's a lot of gentrification happening and all of it, it's a lot. We're not really used to in Italy this type of environment. So for
Mm.
me, you know, waking up one day and there is a huge building outside of the door that wasn't there yesterday. I was like, oh God, it feels so oppressive. It's another downtown. I don't want to be in Center City. I want to be
Right.
in Fishtown. What's happening? And then, and I think shortly it's going to happen in Nashville too. There's no way to escape it. But
Yeah.
mm, yeah, my transition was, I did it because I wanted to be with the person that I love. And then I eventually started to build a life because he's here. So I figured, well, that's where my life is going to be.
Right.
So,
How
yeah.
did you guys meet? How did you guys meet in Italy? I'm just curious. What was the
Well, I didn't know that he was a musician. I didn't know anything about him. And this
okay.
is every time I said that, everybody is like, "Oh, you haven't heard any of the songs or nothing before?" I'm like, nope. In my town, in my hometown in Italy, it's called Ravenna, there is a beautiful beach venue called Hanabi. They have a festival there every year called Beaches Brew. It's a pretty good lineup. every time. And during the season, during summer, they have shows there on the beach, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Some artists they only want to play there because they're like, oh well, I can also go swim right
Go to
after
the
the
beach.
show.
Sure.
It's awesome, you know. Food is great and all of it. I go to the beach before sound check. That's great. So that's where I normally go every day. Because in Italy, beach places are not like in New Jersey, for example. Like we have umbrella
That's
and
right.
like chairs. It's in you have a cafe and a restaurant. So
Hmm.
you go there in the morning, you stay there, you stay there all day long. It's fantastic. You go there every day. So that's what I used to do. And one Sunday, there was a show at 6 p.m. of a band from UK that I wanted to listen to. So me and my closest friend, we decided to go. And Ron happened to be there on tour, his first Italian tour I've ever done. But one show got canceled. So his tour manager decided to be like, oh, let's go to this place that I know. We can go to the beach and listen to this band that I know that's played there. And we met there because of his former drummer, which Dylan's one of our closest friends now. He's a social butterfly. He likes to talk to everybody, and when he's
Everybody.
on tour, it's like it's great. I want to be like him. I would love to be like him with that.
Hmm.
Um, and so he was wearing a pair of Beatles socks, like yellow submarine socks, which I
Sure.
found to be very nice. I took a picture of him, the socks, and he caught me taking a picture, and that was it. He was like, I'm coming over, talking to the girl. And
That was the
likely
open
I was able
door.
to,
The yellow
yeah,
submarine
because
socks.
Ron was very shy, so he came over and he just introduced himself like, "Hi, my name is Ron," and he was like, you know, closing his arms and be like, "Oh, shy." And Dylan invited me to one of their show, and I went. It was like 3 hours away from my house, but I thought it was worthwhile because we kind of had a spark. I was like, "Oh God, this guy's definitely American," and he was.
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh no." And then that was it. Since then, we've been together since that day. You know, yeah.
Well, cool. That's a nice love story. That's a great love story. And of course, he's a singer-songwriter and a musician too. And
Mm-mm.
he did he work with you on this project at all?
Well, he did in the sense that I was very animated for me to do as much as possibly could on my own without asking for any help. Um, but some song needed to be recorded live to capture actually the intensity of it. For
Mhm.
example, Visa was recorded live and Worth It. I overdubbed something, but Worth It or Not, but I had to do the bones, the structure of the song live because I felt like I needed it for the type of song that it was. So he played bass on those two songs, and Don Billick played drums all over the record because I play drums, but I'm not good. So I just do it for fun. So
Mhm.
I always need a drummer. And then he played one guitar solo that I asked him to do over Dear Friend. It sounds like John Mayer, that solo. So I really love that. Very clean strat
Mhm.
sound. It's not really his style, but I was like, can you do something like that? Let's see if how incorporating you.
Right.
And yeah, he played pretty much that was pretty much it because his main role for this was to actually push me to finish it because I'm one of those people that get discouraged very easy and I
Mm.
don't believe that my music sounds like music. So I really needed him to be involved in, yeah, keep doing. Yeah, let's record your vocals. Let's go upstairs and do this.
Right.
Record this today, Chiara. And then yeah, some of those bass and guitar, but very little when it comes to instrument. But he's basically the reason why I've done the record,
He pushed
mainly.
you along. Yeah, it sounds
Yes.
like he produced it a little bit. He helped you kind of produce the thing, get it done.
In terms of vibe, like you could do it. You could do it. This is your thing. This is your little baby. You could do
Right.
this. Absolutely. Um, but he really wanted me to be actually my own producer. He actually, after that, he allowed me to co-produce his latest record
Oh, cool.
because he was very animated for me to actually feel myself good enough to be like, okay, I can produce my own stuff. I don't need anybody. So he was the producer of my strength, let's say this way, which is
Yes.
great. I love that. I
That's
love it.
good. That's good. And Earl Slick played some drums on this record, and
He played,
he's a Philadelphia guy. He was on the show too. I've spoken with him before, and he has of course he does a lot of work with Dr. Dog. He's their
yeah,
drummer, and but
yeah,
he's got some really cool solo work too. So how
yeah.
did you guys hook up? I just imagine being in
Well,
Philadelphia. He's a Philadelphia.
well, Ron knows him for the longest time. They know each other forever. And when we started to record this record, I was actually still in Nashville. It took forever to do this record because I'm a maniac, so everything needs to be perfect. And
Right.
so we were still in Nashville. We were recording drums over at Dom's house, and we were doing some things there. And he stopped by for not particular reason, just to be like, "Hey, what's up?" And he was like, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, we're working on my record." He's like, "Oh, shit, I want to play something. What can I do?" And I was like, "Do you have a marimba?" Because he plays percussion because he's a serious,
Sure.
musician. I was like, "Do you have a marimba? Do you want to play marimba?" Sure. So he was like, "I'll be back." And like 30 minutes after he went home and get the marimba. And 30 minutes after he was like, "Can you guys carry the marimba?" And so,
Yeah.
I was just sure. And that's what he've done that. It was great because that really, I don't know, he played on one of my favorite songs. So it was good.
Which tune was that?
Two trees.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
he
Yeah.
plays
Yeah.
marimba over there, which it makes it, I don't know, it does that carpet. It's like very mellowy sound. I love that.
Right.
That was a very nice addition to the song. And then like he plays some shakers and in something else that I don't even remember. We were there like at that point. It was like, yeah, do this, do
Right.
that. So
Keep him busy.
yeah,
Keep Earl Slick busy. And you play most of the instruments on the record, but
yeah.
you who else sort of played with you on this?
So Dom billet drums, and he also
Yep.
played a little bit. There's a part with a Juno that he really liked. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's keep
Hmm.
that. So Ron played bass in the song that required to be live, but otherwise it's me playing bass. And then Jerry Bernhardt, which is a dearest friend of us. He used to play with Aaron Ray, Cordy Marie Andrew, and he's in the guitar player in the Americana scenes, but he plays a little bit of everything. He's also a fantastic producer.
Hmm.
Um, and he played uh, a little bit of noise guitar in Fire, always before the Fire.
Hmm.
Because I that was kind of a joke. I was like, can you play some like very aggressive, noisy blues things over? And we always make fun of it. So it was like, can
Hmm.
you actually do it? And then he sing with me. The background vocals that you might
Okay.
hear throughout the records, that's him because our voice goes very well together. And when we had to harmonize things, that's a very good combination. As a matter of fact, that's the same background vocals on latest Ron records because we really mash up very well together. And so I used him throughout the record because I could have do it myself, just, harmonize myself, but having a man, high pitched man voice sometimes you can feel a different texture, and I thought that would be a cool thing to do.
Sure.
And then that's about it. These are the dudes that I allowed to be on the record. Yeah,
Those
these
were
are
the
my
dudes. Those were
closest friends.
your
So
American dudes. That's good. They were helping you out. And
yeah.
what has gotten into you is an interesting song. It's much different, in my opinion, at least from a lot of the other songs in the album. That at least until you get up to that. And can you talk a little bit about that song and sort of how it fits in with the overall context of the record?
I love this question because that song, it was, I didn't know that that song would have been the record in the sense that I wrote it. One day I walked out of the door in Philly in the area where I live. it got to a point where some of the stragglers have been pushing farther and farther and farther because that's just what happened, unfortunately. It makes me very sad to think about it because when I first moved there, I had no idea that would be so bad, the situation with some of the drugs and things happening.
Yeah. So you mean like
And
the homeless people?
yeah, not much so homeless, but more like uh, drug addict,
Right.
most of it.
Hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot of empathy for that in the sense that I just can't fathom myself to just be like, oh yeah, I'm just, walking by and this is just my new normal and then
Hmm.
they just live like this. So I struggle so much to adapt to the fact that I can't help everybody.
Right.
And there was a guy that I consistently saw hanging out in the area of our house, but also somehow very far in Center City in the area of Rittenhouse Square. I don't know if he was walking so far where he was sleeping out, but this guy was consistently reappearing in wherever we were going somehow. I don't know, for a long time. I hope he's still alive and okay, but
Mm.
he was, popping all the time. And one day I remember telling Ron, I was like, I wonder what's got into this person to just get to this point in his life.
Yeah.
And then I came back home and I felt so sad that I realized that somehow something was happening within myself as well. And the city was actually making me like sucking up a little bit of the sun that it was internally into me.
Hmm.
And I I wrote that song using this person as the creation for the story that the song is telling. You used to never worry, smiling and all of it. But then you're like, what it's got into you because what's happening? And then this person is actually right there and be like praying, maybe for the first time, to trying to figure out how to get out of it.
Right.
And I feel like it needed, instead of being you know, a pop, dream pop or whatever that was making the rest of the record with a little bit of new wave and punkish, I felt compelled for that song to actually be a straightforward Americana ballad, or at
Right.
least whatever the idea of Americana ballad that I have in my mind. And then I thought I should incorporate some strings, but I didn't want to use my actual cello because for some reason I had this purist thing that I didn't want to mix the two things up
Your two
just
worlds. You
yet.
didn't want to mix your, well, that's interesting because I was going to ask you, I was going to ask you a little bit about that. I know I'm interrupting your answer, but maybe while you're continue your answer, I was thinking a little bit about, you as a classical cellist versus you as more of a rock and roll musician and those two
Oh,
kinds of
there's
worlds.
yeah, there is a lot actually to say about that. But to finish that, I didn't really want the two things to be get mixed up just yet because it might happen, I think, eventually at some
Hmm.
point. Like I'm starting to feel the urgency. But at the time, I wanted to use if you ever heard Frank Ocean Think About You, the song? I've been thinking about you,
Yes. Yes.
no. That song. So that song has an intro that is a terrible string synth, like the classic
Right.
fake
Right.
string sound.
Hmm.
And to me, as bad as it is as a sound itself, because right now you can just plug in that sounds exactly like a real orchestra. But as bad as that is, that has a charm to me. And I said to Ron, I'm going to use that exact plugin. It
Okay.
sounds terrible, but it's going to sound good. So I did a layer, just a carpet of orchestra with that. And that was the little spark that I wanted to throw there to make the ballad a little bit more personal, because otherwise it would be very Americana in my mind. Um, with a slide guitar that I play very badly, but I wanted to do it myself because
Hmm.
I'm a thick kid. I was like, I'm going to do it. And and yeah, there was to me there was a good connection in between. I thought, okay, there is a folk song in the record at the end of the day because Two Trees kind of a folkish song.
Hmm.
So maybe this could actually fit. So I sent it to Slim, the label, and he loved it. He's like, this song has to be in the record. It's my favorite song. I'm like, okay, sure.
Mm.
And then Beach Tree was kind of a little bit of country Americana in my mind as well. So I was like, okay, this could be the last part of this record could be actually how the next one might be. Sort of like in, so they're in waves,
Yeah,
you
like a
know?
transition, like a little transition there somehow.
Yeah. And then to respond to the other question, like that there's basically to me, there's like two personality when I operate into music. The classical musician, I'm very purist over that. So I struggle so much to actually just pick up my cello and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna play cello over this rock and roll song. It just my
Mm.
brain just crashes. I can't do it. Um, but I can certainly put that aside, waking up and be like, okay, now is Chiara that plays something else. And I just put that aside, which I have to work. Now I can switch it, but I have to work to get to that point. I remember practicing, for because I play bass in Ron's band. And I remember practicing with him, and he used to say to me, we're not practicing classical music. So if somebody makes mistakes or you don't play everything perfect, you don't have to beat up yourself and you don't have to
Right.
beat yourself down and you don't have to be like, oh my God, it's all fine. This is a different thing. And all the friends, all the people that I was talking about before, our drummer, all the musicians around me, they always told me the same things. Chiara, when you play cello, you are, harsh and
Yeah.
like, like that. But when you're playing bass, you can jump, you can smile, you can
Right.
move your head, do whatever you want. And that was actually fantastic for me to learn. It's
It's a
great.
jam. It's a jam. You're jamming.
Yes. Yes, which it's now it's great. Initially, I was like, "Oh my God, what am I supposed to do?" And now I love it. I recently purchased um a very beautiful Offner, a vintage one,
Oh, nice.
because I desired that bass for so long. And now when I'm right there, I'm like, this is my last little bit of incorporate a little bit of,
A little bit
because
of the classic
yeah,
German, yeah. Is it the
yeah.
Hofner? Is it the violin bass or it's something else?
Yeah. No, it's violin based. It's not the classic one that Paul McCartney plays, it's not the Ignition, it's not that serious because I wanted to get something different. It's beautiful. It's a nude look, all gold.
Oh, cool.
It's a very particular one, and I put a big pink bow on top of the head. And every time I'm on stage, you'll have to see people when I arrive on stage. And I open the case and I pick that up, and there's a huge bow. And then I have to play the heaviest, stuff, and they don't even know what's happening because,
Right.
you know,
That's
but
fun. Well, you got your pink bow and you have your pink record, and so
yes.
you've got a theme there, of course. Always Before is another one of my favorites on the record. It's got a real
Nice.
like a 1960s groove, and
Yeah.
you could kind of dance to it if you wanted to. And there's a lot going on lyrically in that tune. Could you
Oh,
tell me
yeah.
tell me a little bit about that one?
So that song is purely inspired by my love for Velvet Underground.
Oh, Velvet Underground. Okay.
Yes, I don't know if you can tell, but that's my tribute so much. I love Lou Reed, and yeah. So this is funny because every time I have to sing the song live, I always introduce a little bit the story behind it because of how the lyrics are.
Oh,
Because
good.
I
I'm
don't want
glad. See,
anybody.
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to get mad off of it.
Okay.
So I always explain what's the story behind it, which is my friend. they call me the witch of the band because I am the one that cares for, zodiac and incense and
Okay.
smudging and stuff like that, which they make fun of me. But sometimes they're always like, ah, you were right about this, you're right about
Right,
that.
right,
So I'm a Pisces, which is a, water sign.
right.
And I have a hint of not fully understanding how Sagittarius works and on this planet. I can't really do it. Somehow
Is that
I
your
have
husband? Is your husband a Sagittarius?
now he's a Libra, but
Oh,
all the rest of his chart are all fire sign,
oh, interesting. Okay.
which is Sagittarius and so I always fire Sagittarius, Aries, and Leo. He
Okay.
doesn't have any Leo. He has the. Are you a Sagittarius?
I was gonna say I'm a Scorpio, by the way. So
Oh, I love that.
be
Great job.
careful. Watch out.
No, no, I love them. I love them. Scorpio and Cancer are fantastic. I love them.
If you say
And so
so.
we go very, no, we go very well together,
Good.
because all water signs. But
Right, right, right.
anyway, my somehow, even if I struggle with those signs, I am constant. I have so many of them. My brother is born November 28th. He's a Sagittarius. And
Hmm.
my guitar player, Jerry Bernard, he's born November 28th. He's a Sagittarius. And
Interesting.
Dom is an Aries. And there's so many others. Dylan is an Aries. I got a lot of fire going on. And they're all my friends and they're my best friends. Somehow they all make me insane.
Right.
So one day I was a little mad at Jerry because he for some reason he was like he has the things that he's like disappear for a little bit of time and then he's like, hey, what's up? All good, I'm still here. I'm like, oh my God, people needs you. You just disappeared, don't respond, and then you just popped up again. My
Mhm.
brother does the same thing. Ron sometimes does the same things when he gets overwhelmed. And it's a thing,
Yeah.
apparently.
Right, right,
So
right.
I got mad, and instead of yell, I sit down on my front porch and I wrote this song. And I wrote this song talking about how every time when the song says maybe she didn't really teach you anything. I'm just talking about, but like your mother didn't teach you how to behave towards people. You
Right.
didn't learn how to do that. That. And I found myself in the same situations of always before, and then always before in the sense of like the things that always happen at the same times, and I forgive you, and then you just
Mhm.
do the same things all over again.
Right, right, right.
And then I never want to raise my voice, and I just want to flow away because I'm a Pisces and I don't want to be bothered and I don't like conflicts and you know, I I just follow the movement of the liquid that I am in it,
Right.
whatever that is. And but fire don't do that. Fire very fiery, explosive, and intense. And some fire are very intense, like Aries, but some other fires, Sagittarius, are very like, on their own. But that's an intensity to it that you
Right.
can't really grasp in it, and it just makes you mad sometimes. At least it does it to me. And I just mixed up all the people that have fire signs that maybe sometimes in life pissed me off. And I was like, let me cool down and I write that song.
And now you have that song. You have that
But I
song
wanted
to help you
I
cope.
wanted to do it in a somehow in that rock and roll, that because I wanted to also be at the end of the day comically,
Right.
explain it to why they piss me off.
So do you tell all the fire signs in the audience, you guys should go to the bathroom for this song or something, like go
No,
to the
I
bar and
normally
get a beer or something.
No, I normally say, so is anybody here Sagittarius? Let me explain why this is happening. And then I also say disclaimer, I don't hate any of it because I have so many. And most of the time Jerry's playing with me and I'm just like, say
Right.
that I love him. And then I turn to Ron, which is basically a fake fire sign because he has the Libra, but all the other planets. are fire. So I
Mm.
always make fun of him, be like, "You're a fake Libra," and I was like, "But yeah, but you're also my husband, so that's you know."
Right, right,
And
right,
then
right.
my brother is, I love him to death, you know, and I want to punch him, but I love him so much. So,
Well, listen, you've got all this stuff in you. You've got all these ideas. You've got these two different musical worlds that are sort of inside of you.
mm.
And what are you hoping for next? I know this record is brand new, and that's what we're here to talk about. But what are some of your goals, your visions of what you'd like to do next with music?
I'm actually starting recording new stuff already. I'm pretty quick at making songs. So what I do is that when I get the idea, I just sit down and just play it with the guitar. If to me, if I can sing it from beginning to the end right away, that
Mm.
means the song is done. And I just have to start work on it. So I'm collecting whole voice and guitar song. I'm pretty much halfway through. I have six of them, so that's pretty
Okay.
good. Yeah, that will just lead me to probably start to record pretty soon. Um, which doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be done soon. I can start now, and it's gonna take me forever knowing myself once I
Right.
get to the, layer of things. But I definitely the new record. And I would like to make an alternative version of some of the song in this record because I
Mm.
got a couple ideas. I wanted to make maybe a jazz version of some of them,
Mm.
which is interesting because I like to sing jazz sometimes, but I never have the opportunity to do it. So I figured that I could do it with my own music and see if people likes it. And then has nothing to do with music, but I'm starting to write my second book, which is great. I
Oh,
love
cool.
that.
I didn't know you were an author.
I have a poetry book that it's been out at this point for a little bit, like 2 years. And for the first time, I'm trying to make something else that is more like a collection of essay, let's say it this way. I don't know how to put it.
Mm.
Like sort of like a biography under an eye of an expat, somebody that moves somewhere else and
Right.
has an eye on the perspective of things. Um, and then yeah, probably the two things my will go to, get together at some point because some of the things that I talk about in the book are the same things that I will probably talk about in the next record, which
Right.
is kind of interesting. You haven't asked me this, but I'll tell you. It's interesting because when I spend time in Philly, I talked about things that I observe there, but I also some reminiscence from other places where I've been.
Mm.
And then as soon as we decided for a moment to be in Nashville, I started to write songs that they're basically all about observation of things over Philly. So I'm like, can I actually be where I am? No.
Right.
So probably the next record will be about that, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Do you ever write anything classical, instrumental for, with thinking about a classical treatment in mind?
I have things that they're being composed,
Mm.
but I play it in my house because I don't I don't know if they're, I would love to one day to record them, but I've never recorded classical music, so I have to learn, the engineering behind do a proper
Right.
recording of classical, and then eventually I have this dream for so long. Me and my ex-roommate when I was in conservatory in Bologna, he now lives in Poland. It's, you know, do his thing. He's a composer, and we have done six suite for cello solo. Thinking about the Bach six suite for cello solo, we thought maybe we should just suite modern suite. Of course, there's Casado, there's Britain, there is music already composed under, thinking about that. But we wanted to do something, and we were young, and we composed this, and we have never recorded them. And think
Mm.
about that. I have some music which is, you know, how can I say? It's contemporary music,
Yeah.
but it's sometimes unlistenable
Right.
for people that they're not,
Yes.
uh, So sometimes I get a little scared of doing it. I'm like, should I not even record this?
Right, right.
But sometimes I do feel the urgency. So maybe that will be the thing to do also, you
How
know,
come so much contemporary classical music is so adventurous?
unaudible.
Have you thought about that? Because sometimes I see these, I get these, and I'm just conversating with you about it because you have this little bit of a background. I don't usually get to talk to anyone about it,
Yeah.
but a lot of the things that I'm always interested because I love classical music too, and but I get excited because I'm interested in new voices and in the rock and roll world or the pop world, but I'm also interested in new voices in the classical world. But most things that are classical releases now are very challenging listens. Or they're very simplistic or something. It's not like, as you say, like a Bach piece or Mozart or anything like that. I mean, these are the greats, so who's going to come up with that? But even so, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, I would say this. If you, I don't know, if you think about Mozart, that is so easy listening. That is
Right.
fantastic. That is like if you have to introduce somebody to listening, like conscious listening of classical music, some people just put it on the background and they don't even pay attention. But if you're
Right,
like,
right,
okay, today we're sitting on our couch, we're putting on this, and you're listening from the beginning until the end, the tempo and all of it. I will choose Baroque, I would choose Vivaldi, I would choose Mozart, I would choose maybe also Bach, I would choose, I don't know, Boccherini, I would choose something like that.
sure.
And then you're like, okay, maybe now we can go a little higher. We can just, let's try, I don't know, let's try Beethoven and then
Right.
let's try. And slowly you get to the point where you're like, okay, a couple of months ago, I made Ron listen to Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto number two, which is, the most famous, the most like, oh, my heart is pouring my
Very
soul.
romantic, yes.
Great, fantastic. He loved it. But I was like, okay, are you ready for listening a little bit to Mussorgsky or Stravinsky? And I was like, what? You
Right.
know? And so to be honest with you, even like sometimes when I do study Britain cello solo stuff, like that is a lot. That is, if you're not into it, there could be a lot. And
Right.
I don't know. I think it's because at some point, the whole I don't know how to say in English, decacophony.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So when we get to that point, you don't composers stops to think about like music in the melodic way and just
Right.
be like, okay, let's try something new. And that's where it got to the point that it got inaudible to a certain degree if you
Right.
don't know what's happening. It's more like a technical thing than you start to appreciate more than um actually enjoyable. Some things are still enjoyable to me. Like if I'm doing some layer, like very, very long, we in conservatory we used to call them football. It's when there are notes that they have a corona on top of it. So the time it's extend until somebody doesn't decide that it's ending.
Okay.
So if it's a 4/4, so you have a note that it's a 4/4 technically, but if you
Right.
put punto coronato on the top of it, it will just be like, oh, until the conductor doesn't say that it's over and over. So
I
when
see.
you do that, we call it football for that reason, because it's just so long. You're just like, all right, okay. So it's a ball.
Right.
We don't know what to do. So I found it to be actually very interesting and enjoyable to layer up notes that they're non-classic harmony, non in melodic. I'm not doing like a third and it's very joyful and nice.
Mm.
I'm probably putting notes that might clash, that may be a cluster for some people, but for me, then I'm knowing what I'm doing. It sounds audible, but I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. Let me see what happens if I do this.
Right.
And I think that is the thing that happened to that point when you're like, all right, this is very enjoyable and this is terrible, but I'm still listening to it. I
Right.
mean, like, people that listen to classical music when they enter the territory of contemporary, they probably approach it under that aspect, like how interesting it is, mostly,
Right.
not how nice it is to listen to, you
Right.
know?
Kiara, I love the record, and
Thank
you
you.
know, I wish you best of luck with it, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for your time. I really appreciate it.
Ciao, grazie.
Yeah, yeah.